Faber.
So excited to meet you.
Welcome to our clinic. We can't wait to look at your brain.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. I'm very excited to see what's going on in there.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Cool.
Come on in.
Let's do it. I was like a very eager student.
Yeah.
I really wanted to keep up with my peers, and so I tried tremendously to do so. I would study for if we had a test, I was studying 4 hours every night for a week, and I'd still get a D or an F on it, whereas my friends would be studying for the same test for 30 minutes the night before. And so my mom was the one that was really seeing all of this happen because, of course, the teachers were like, she's not performing, but she does try in class, but she's just, you'll call on her and she has no idea what's going on. So I just was working very hard and she could see me working. So she's like, she's not lazy. She's not putting in the work. She's just, something's not connecting. So I do think what's so interesting to me about it now as an adult is that I'm really curious about how it's affected my self-esteem and how I think and learn still as an adult.
Yeah, I mean, just the stigma. I mean, was there a lot of at least initially, where, hey, you're not working hard enough?
And I think that's a little bit of the problem for me is that I seem fine, but what's going on inside is so hard sometimes.
Emotionally, how does that come up then for you when you're...
It's just exhausting is probably the biggest thing. Yeah. I'm tired a lot.
Yeah.
I'm really good at turning it on and being able to be sharp, and I do interviews and people are like, you were great. I'm I have no idea what I talked about.
So organization, division, kind of putting things in their priorities, all that is a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right, fair enough. As a psychiatrist, we like to, we classify, I mean, that's our life and divide. And then what you're telling me now isn't something we necessarily see in the DSM-5 or a diagnostic book. We have to kind of think creatively, think how the brain works, maybe come up with some other terms to help understand. As you're talking and I'm listening, my first two thoughts are, one, yeah, there's a focus issue, but it also sounds like there's what I call a cognitive control issue. It's and cognitive control is there's all these things coming at you.
Yeah.
And you can't separate it and prioritize on just the thing.
That's one of the things that was, I remember now that you say that, there was something said in one of my studies that was she takes the key important elements of if you were to say something,
yeah.
I may not I may not get the point of what the key important things are. I may focus on other points. And maybe it's because of the way you said it. Maybe it's because of other distractions that are going on in the room.
And then what about the reality shows? How did that?
The social part of that is just feeling like everyone might, you're I'm really not that important of a person, but people do recognize you. And a lot of times they recognize you when you're just doing mundane things, and you're always aware of the fact that there might be somebody here that knows who I am, and then they're judging me. And so then immediately I already put that energy into my body of they're prejudging me. Or dating, I feel I notice it a lot with dating, because if they know who I am, then I'm they have all these preconceived notions about who I actually, what they think I actually am.
So it's almost like you have to be perfect?
Yeah, I definitely am I've been trying to break this perfect complex for a very long time, but I think that's something I realized with being diagnosed as a child is I was always trying to live up to this idea of perfect, but I couldn't ever really achieve it because my brain wouldn't let me achieve it. But then there is no perfect, so this is where I'm kind of trying to reshape and learn more so that I can be accepting of my perfect,
None of us are perfect.
No.
None of us are perfect. And so if somehow we could help take that veil off and increase hope for
That's
people
we're
going to do you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is why I wanted to come and do this too.
It makes a big difference. And so, there's being in front of people, but there's being you.
Totally.
Being real. Okay. Well, let's look at your stuff and see what we can do to try to help out. Okay. 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 The first thing we're going to do is look at the surface of our brain. The surface of our brain is called the cortex. All right. So our surface scans, better blood flow, brain's working really well. Decreased blood flow, brain's not working so well. So what we're going to do is look at regions just to see what that blood flow looks like. All right. When we get a picture of our surface, ideally, this is what we hope to see. The colors on these pictures mean nothing. We purposely put colors on here just to make sure they look more pretty. We're mainly looking at texture. The smoother the surface, the better the blood flow.
Okay.
The more little black spots we see or bumps, there's less blood flow. If we see a black spot, you don't have a hole in your head. People freak out, think they have like a cyst, a cavity if I got like an MRI, or even worse, tumors. No, there's just less blood flow. That's how we're measuring. For you, this is kind of how I think about stuff, all right? One is our lower frontal cortex helps with focusing. All right, so we want to just take a look here and see what's going on. I've got a lot of bumps. We might be distracted a lot. Yes, we definitely want to look here. If we're getting anxious or nervous, I might want to look here as well. There's several areas. Remember I talked about cognitive control? We got all these things coming at you. And then some of the ways say, that's not important, that's not important. Part of the areas that help are here. And then right here on both of our dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. So I kind of want to look here as well.
Okay.
Okay?
Great.
So let's take a look and we'll see what we got on your surface scans, okay? All right, so here is your scan.
Okay.
All right. So just to orientate, bottom up, top down. All right. Left side, right side. We're going to mainly start looking at this picture here. And we're going to start from the top and work our way down this way.
Okay.
All right? Yeah. So our lower frontal cortex, this is our left lower frontal lobe. This is our right lower frontal lobe. But on both sides, you got a little bump here. So yeah, we're having a little problems focusing. Okay, so information might start to get disorganized, discombobulated just from seeing that. We want to help these. Now, I will say this. We rank these 1 to 4. 1's pretty mild, 4's like really, really severe. These are like little ones.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. But you've got some stuff going on here. When I look at your frontal lobes, here, all right, so like from my pen, here's our dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Look how smooth this is.
Yeah.
This looks really nice. But this little bump here, see that little indentation? Right now when I see that, sometimes people have gotten hit in the front of their head.
Oh.
Were there any head traumas growing up at all?
I mean, I laugh about it because I'm like, I feel like if I had a head trauma, maybe I just don't remember it. But
no cheerleading head traumas?
I mean, there's probably been lots of things, but I was like always a really active kid and kind of a tomboy, so I would like slide down a mud hill, and do stupid things sometimes. So I mean, it's very possible that something happened. I used to play soccer, so heading the ball and things like that. I don't know.
When I see that, if we get hit in the front, boom, we see a bump here, head reflexively goes back, can hit our skull.
So you get
Contra coup. I saw you were in an accident too when you were age 6. Car accident.
Yeah, and I mean, I just am thinking of this too. I was in another accident when I was even younger, but I was the only person in the car. My mom, I was in the passenger seat. She ran inside really quickly. I was like 2 years old, 3 years old, and I got in the driver's seat and put it in reverse and went down our hill and ran into our neighbor's fence. And so nobody was actually there to see what happened.
This happened at age 2 or 3?
Yeah, I was really little. Maybe I was a little bit older, but I was very young.
And you hit your head?
My mom said she came across she heard it, ran down, and I just said I drove mommy car.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, I didn't even see that one in the report.
I didn't write it because I just remembered.
Yeah.
I was like, oh wait, nobody was there to see it because I asked my mom, I said, were there any other accidents that you can remember? But nobody was actually there to see if I hit my head or.
It's amazing. I can't tell you how many times is we bring up head trauma, and it's like a lot of times it's just not emphasized or prioritized. But like what you're sharing, right? It's like, I'm going like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You hit your head at what age?
Yeah. And
then you think of all these symptoms you've got, which don't, to me, fit any kind of typical DSM-5 diagnosis, except for learning disability, which isn't really one of the emphasized. But, okay, so that's good information to know. Okay.
So, I mean, I clearly hit my head at some point doing something.
Yeah. But again, it tells me the memories are in there. It just kind of putting car accident.
Takes a while sometimes for me to get to them too.
To get to
I
them.
may leave in 2 hours remember something else when I hit my head,
When we look at your picture, I go from here. And as I said, look at how smooth this is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then we kind of get to that frontal, temporal to temporal parietal junction. See little bumps back here?
Mm-hmm.
Parietal cortex, you got some bumps here. And then your occipital cortex, it's really, really hard to see here.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is I'll go back to this picture. I'll draw a line around your cerebellum. And then underneath that little area is your occipital cortex. See where that little light shining through?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks like you get a little bump there too.
Mm.
I kind of wonder if you had a head trauma,
Hmm.
right? People who get bumps here, they get kind of foggy
Mm-hmm.
in their thinking.
I do.
So we might want to do some things to try to help out. So we definitely want to help this whole area get smoother, all right? Our temporal lobes, I like to see 2 fluffy cotton balls. For the most part, on the undernight side, it looks pretty good. I could make a case right here on your right temporal lobe on the middle side, where you see that little line. You have a little bit of decreased blood flow. And then the indentations right here. So here's our left temporal lobe. Here's left temporal lobe. Can you see that kind of like, almost like I took a golf ball
Yeah.
and pushed in? Yeah, so we might have some area here where there's some challenges, but here for anxiety and maybe some irritability. We got to talk about this, but I think you had a head trauma.
Interesting.
Yeah, early. And I really wonder now that you mentioned 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask my mom.
Mom. But we got to work. We're going to talk about some ways to help this get smoother.
Okay.
All right? The cognitive control piece, we're able to just not let everything come in. Anything that can increase blood flow can help get this surface smoother or increase oxygen. I want you to get our supplement called Brain and Memory Power Boost. Dr. Amen found that helps support our cortex.
Okay.
Rather than taking all 7 separately, he put 6 of the 7 in one capsule. So it's easier to take and it's a lot less expensive to take. All right. So there's 3 supplements that help support our temporal lobes to help keep your brain calm. I'll put them in the back, but won't say them now. And there's 3 that can help that whole surface get smoother.
Great.
Okay. I want you to take 3 at breakfast and 3 at dinner. By the way, we're doing all these at breakfast and dinner time.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
To help here.
Okay.
From a neurophysiological standpoint, that's where I'd start.
Okay.
Medically, there's something called hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy is where you sit in this big, looks like a tube. You unzip it, you jump in, you lay down, you can bring books and your computer and read. We zip it up, then we increase the oxygen concentration and we increase the atmospheric pressure. It pushes oxygen across our blood-brain barrier. So where we've got these bumps, it helps them start to rehabilitate themselves.
Wow.
I like it a lot. I like it especially for traumatic brain injuries. I mean, ideally, where would you like to see yourself 5 years from now with all this?
I think in a lot of ways I want it to help my confidence, because I feel like one of the things that I've always done is, I think that's where my social anxiety comes from in a big way, is I always feel like I always feel like the dumbest person in the room. And I know I'm not. And I always feel like I have to prove myself, or I have to, but I when I'm having conversations with people sometimes it flows and I'm like, oh my God, words worked. Like it all worked today. And then other times I'm standing there and I'm like, what did I just say? Or I feel like I'm like stuck, and it's like I sometimes feel like there's like the gears in my head just need to be oiled. They're just like stuck,
Well, I want to see your self-confidence grow in this whole stigma, of being stupid, because, even though you may not feel that way, believe me, you're not stupid.
Right. No, and I know that for sure.
So it's just a matter of, you knowing it.
Yeah.
And if we get to learn to master, how to remember, and I think how to divide information in a way that's sequential, I think that's going to be huge for you.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Good. Well,
Thank
I'm excited
you.
for you.